So, there are people who also are so active that they are just very singularly focused on whatever they're doing. And there's a passage in the book where you're talking about how, meditation can be just doing one thing when you're doing it. If you're driving, just drive. If you're walking, just walk. So what would you say to those people who are sort of in the middle, right? Very action-driven, action-oriented, and saying, look, my Excel spreadsheets are my meditation.
Yeah, in fact, I think they're better than those who don't do anything. They're much better than those, from the point of view of spiritual matters, I think they're better than the guys who don't do anything and say there's no point in doing anything. You know what? Anyway, you're going to die. But then, when you see a hamburger, you don't say you're going to die, you want to eat it. It's only other things, spiritual things, you don't want to do. So, I don't eat hamburgers, I'm just saying. If somebody says, well, I'm working and this is meditation for me, if it's really one-pointed work without any distraction, then it can also become a kind of meditation. But it has to be, but that kind of work which becomes truly meditative is a work which is not for the self but for others. What can work if you are a person who is like a busybody, we call it busy beaver, good. But try to sometimes use that for others also, not only for yourself. Slowly, if this happens, then that itself becomes a kind of meditation.
There's also a question you answered in the book around the process of bringing our energy together and meditation's role in that. Something to the effect of there's 108 channels maybe in the body, and whenever we're doing something, energy's moving through one or another channel. And meditation is that process of bringing all of the energy together to be in one place when you're doing it. So can you talk about the role of Kriya practice, which is one of the things that you teach in gathering energy together?
Yeah, because when we are talking about yoga, Kriya Yoga, we need to have a background on this, theoretical understanding. And that is, when you say 108, I often think it's a metaphor for innumerable. It need not exactly be 108. So they say that there are numerous channels in this human body and the human psyche, which start from the Sahasrara and go into all parts of the body. Well, a medical doctor would say that all the nerves that start from the brain and then go and spread to other parts, from the central nervous system to the parasympathetic on both sides and the vagus nerve and so on. Now, the yogic theory is that the prana or the energy in us, because of which we speak, we move, I'm sitting here because there's some energy in me to sit. It moves through all these channels. But the major three channels among these are the Ida, the Pingala and the Sushumna, the central channel. At the moment we are not concerned with the central channel because all our activities, all our thoughts, all our actions, everything happens when the energies are moving through, when the prana is moving through the Ida and the Pingala. Sufficient. You don't have to check anything else. The energy is moving through the Ida and the Pingala. You can walk, you can talk, you can eat, you can study, you can do nuclear physics, you can do anything, or quantum physics, enough, if the energies are passing through Ida and Pingala. Now the yogi says that if one wants to transcend the ordinary world of the five senses, which before us, and go to other dimensions or expand our horizons, then you need to gather these energies which are in Ida and Pingala bring them together and make the energy to go through one channel called the Sushumna, which stretches from the bottom of the spine to the crown of the head, inside. So Kriya, one of the things now why this doesn't happen is because the Sushumna Nadi is usually blocked due to various reasons. Strong emotions, weak emotions, experiences in life, in the past life, also anger, excitement, irritation, likes and dislikes, hatred. All these are psychic blocks that kind of get into the Sushumna and behave like muck. So that even if the prana needs to pass through the Sushumna, it's not possible because it is blocked. So the first part of Kriya is how to clean the Sushumna. Because if you don't clean the Sushumna, whatever you do, even if the energies are awakened and they're trying to pass through the central channel, they cannot, because there is no way they can go. Somebody made a beautiful analogy of saying that if you need to get some music out of a flute, the flute has to be hollow. You can get no music out of a solid piece of wood because it's all blocked. There is no place for the air or the wind to go. We say no place for the prana to move. And just like the flute, we have the Sushumna, which is actually hollow but filled with muck. And just as the flute, which the player, the wonderful flutist played in Vrindavan, it has 7 holes in a flute. You blow through one at the top and then the rest you adjust with your fingers. You get any music you want. But first it has to be bamboo, it has to be hollow. So therefore, the first exercise in Kriya is to clean the channel. And then when you clean the channel, then you bring the Ida and the Pingala together, because the energies that flow, they're not positive, negative in that sense, but they're like the anode and the cathode of an electrical connection, plus and minus. And then you bring them together, you spark them, and then that spark goes through the Sushumna. But before that you need to clean. So there is the preliminary exercise of Kriya where it's like a bottle brush. You know, those feeding bottles which you give milk to the kids, you have a kind of brush that, this thing. So then after that, then it is, once it's clear, very often you don't have to do anything. Just keep it open and the one who plays the music picks it up and the songs come through and the gopis go crazy. Not talk about human beings, okay.
We probably have time for one more question before we transition to the second part of our program.
Do we have any other program?
I think we have a second half of the program, right, Naresh? Yes.
It's your talk.
My talk on what? I'm having a talk. Anyway, it's okay.
So maybe, since we're at a Tibetan center, maybe I can ask a question that's not in the book, but related to the place we're at. So there is this connection between the Nath yogi tradition and the Vajrayana system of Tibetan Buddhism.
True.
Can you talk a little bit about that connection, interrelationship?
It's a big subject, vast subject. When you say Mahayana or Vajrayana, it's not just one body of literature and one body of teachings. There's several, although the common point, of course, are the original teachings of Gautama the Buddha, yes. But there are several interpretations and several paths. And the Vajrayana comes from Mahayana, which really developed in Tibet. Well, one of the greatest writers on the Mahayana, philosophers, teachers, was of course from Andhra Pradesh, Nagarjuna wrote the. I'm proud that I live in Andhra Pradesh. Now. So Nagarjuna wrote the wonderful text called, anybody? No, I don't want to know, but I like the pickles, huh?
Fundamental of wisdom.
What is it called? Nagarjuna's famous text.
I know in Tibetan it's fundamental of wisdom, but I don't know in Sanskrit.
Prajna Paramita. So, Nagarjuna wrote the Prajna Paramita, which is one of the. But having said all that, I must say that this particular variety of Buddhist teachings that developed in the heartland of Tibet was, it happened in this like this. Since we are on the subject and we are in this temple, there was a king called Trisong, Detsung or somebody like that, who wanted to civilize the Tibetans, who were quite wild, and even the Chinese couldn't control them those days. So they tried to control them by taking a bride from them and marrying them and so on. They were like, so he wanted to bring Buddhist teachings into Tibet. So he got a monk from India, who was of course a Sutrayana Buddhist, which means, what is the other term used? Theravada Buddhist, whose name was, I think, Shantarakshita. So Shantarakshita went, I have to be careful because there are people who know. So Shantarakshita went and taught Buddhist teachings of non-violence and not injury to others and so on and so forth. Well, it worked in some way, but it was not enough, because they had the native shamans in Tibet who are called the Bompas. The Bompas were very powerful people who had some tantric capacities. Like Shantarakshita would build up a monastery and these guys would destroy them, according to the story, with lightning and thunder. We don't know, but so they were looking for someone who's a Buddhist and at the same time who knew these mystical and occult aspects. So they found somebody in a place called Udyan, which is now in Afghanistan, greater India of olden days. And they found this man called Padmasambhava. If you see the pictures they have, they didn't have any photographs, but the paintings and images of Padmasambhava is not the kind of person who you think is a peaceful monk, mustache and all that. So Padmasambhava was a Buddhist, but he was also a great practitioner of Tantra. So he was brought, and all along as he went, he kept defeating the Bompas who would oppose him. Not all opposed, but those who did. And he hid many teachings here and there, which later on came out one by one. And therefore the first order started by Padmasambhava in Tibet was the Nyingma order. And the wonderful teaching called the Dzogchen, which is called direct illumination, Dzogchen. You spell it in English with D, because Dzogchen is part of the Nyingma order of Padmasambhava. But after that, there were so many orders of Tibetan Buddhists. There was the great yogi Milarepa, who was more into the kind of practice that we do in the Nath Sampradaya, with the Kundalini and the chakras and the transfer of consciousness and so on. So from Milarepa came the Kagyu order, the Kagyus. The Karmapa is from the Kagyu order, and the Thai Shitu Rinpoches are from the Kagyu order. So they are yogis, basically practitioners of Kundalini Yoga, transfer of consciousness, Shushumna Nadi, Ida Pingala, it's all part of their teaching. They are beautiful diagrams, the pictures that they have, chakras, lotus. This is the next order. Yoga is much more linked to this order than any other. But then, yoga is not purely yoga, there is yoga tantra. So Yoga Tantra, like the chakras and so on, are studied also by the other order of the Nyingmas. So it's kind of linked together. But most yoga and Nath Sampradaya teachings you will find in the order of the Kagyus. Then of course there are the Sakhyapas who were great scholars and teachers. And then from there came the next, which is the Gelugpas, who are probably the last order to come out, but who combined all these things together and laid great stress on scholarship also, because they found that these yogis, as they call, who are wandering ascetics practicing the Vajra teachings, should also have a background of the whole theology and system of thought and philosophy and everything. So throughout the practices you will find some link to yoga. Going back to Gautama the Buddha, as we discussed earlier, how do you recognize Gautama the Buddha in an image? He sits in Padmasana. So Padmasana is derived from the Yoga Sutras, from the Yoga, Gorakhnath. The Nath teachers, starting from Adi Nath to Matsyendranath to Gorakhnath and so on, they were the founders of the system of yoga and practice and postures and so on, and pranayama. So the very fact that the Buddha, now it's become famous as the Buddha posture, so much so, means that he must have been a practitioner of yoga. So there is a very intimate link. There is also a link with Vedanta. The teachings of Vedanta go almost parallel to the teachings of Nagarjuna's Prajna Paramita, except there are some differences, but I think we need not look at the differences so much. The differences are, if you go deep into the study of Vedanta, which is the Upanishad, basically the literature of Vedanta is derived from the Upanishads. And the Upanishads are the oldest texts we can get among the Vedas. It's interesting to note that I don't think we need to have another talk, we are already having a talk. Let's not split it into two. So when one of the most important propounders of the Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta teachings, anybody? Shankara. When Adi Shankara was teaching Vedanta in Banaras, in Varanasi, the orthodoxy of Varanasi, the Hindu orthodoxy, was quite uncomfortable. Because he said, all these rituals are not going to help. You need to have Viveka and Vairagya and then understand the teachings. So they said that this guy is come to destroy our tradition. Shankara has come to destroy your tradition. So they wanted to show that he was not a great. So what they did, they called him a Prachanna Bhautika, which means a Buddhist in disguise. That's the closest they could get, because they couldn't find anything else to compare. So they said Buddhist in disguise, because the teachings of the Buddhist teachings were so similar to the Vedantic teachings that Shankara was talking about, that it was easy for them to label him as he was not, of course, he was doing his own. But the thing is, because there's a key element, a key term used. In the Buddhist literature, spiritual literature and philosophy, the word used is shunya. Shunya, somewhere I saw shunya. Okay, doesn't matter.
Your book from last year.
Okay. Shunya. Now, the Vedantic term is Purna. The Supreme Brahman, or the absolute reality, is not a personality. It's called Purna, complete. Purnamada Purnamidam, totally complete. Now the Buddhists, Nagarjuna, called it Shunya in Prajna Paramita. Why did he call it Shunya? Because there is no way to define it. You can't define it using our ordinary terms. So he said, this is something which is like zero. No, zero is not nothing. Put one in one side and add zeros. You can increase millions, billions with a zero. But you think zero is nothing. It's not nothing. It gives value to the other. So, and in fact, India's greatest contribution to world mathematics is the concept of shunya, zero. So, when philosophers without spiritual understanding and experience begin an argument, they say, oh, shunya is different from purna. Can't be, because the Brahman described as purna in the Upanishads, when you go into the description, it is almost the same as saying it is shunya. Please understand that shunya is not nothing. Shunya is that from which this entire universe has come and into which it goes back. Then why is it called shunya? Because there is no way to define it. You cannot describe, define something which is so abstract that you end up calling it nothing. But actually it doesn't mean nothing, it means no thing. It's not a thing, that's all. Then what it is, only one who knows knows. So there is a lot of connection from the Vedantic point of view, from the Upanishads down to the teachings of the Nath Sampradaya and the practice of yoga. There are innumerable links with the Buddhist system, and it doesn't matter what you call the thing, ultimate thing. You may call it nirvana. In Vedantic terms, you may call it moksha. In yogic terms, you may call it kaivalya. I love that kaivalya word, because kaivalya is derived from the word kevala, only. That means in kaivalya, the yogi realizes there is only one, there is nothing, there is no diversity, everything is one. There's unity in diversity, where prakriti is completely overcome and there is only the purusha. Please don't mistake purusha to be masculine gender. Purusha is like shunya, it's like the supreme Brahman, there is no gender there.
So I think we'll just keep going, but before we sort of transition into more
there is no transition.
No transitions, I just keep asking you questions, but I just wanted to say that for anyone who hasn't read the book, it really is a phenomenal time saver. Like if you wanted to get all of the questions answered, it'd literally be hundreds of hours on YouTube, and that would be a lot of questions you'd have to ask him if you did it in person. So highly recommended this book.
What was the answer to the question, who am I?
It's something that you have to find out.
I know what it is, but can you help us?
If you know what it is, you could help us. Now this is very interesting that since he asked this question. The identity crisis of not knowing who one is many thousand years old, it's not new. But you cannot find who you are, your true identity, just by saying who am I, who am I, who am I. You can as well say Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Coca. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a word. You know what I mean? It's not to be found by practicing who am I, who am I, who am I. It's not repetition of who am I is going to help. What's going to help? When the great teacher Ramana Maharshi said, the major question we have is to figure out who you are, what he meant was, Ramana Maharshi was gifted in the sense that at the age of 18, or 15 or 16, he already got the experience that he is not the body. Not we. We still think that we are the body, right? He had, and for that he did nothing. He did not practice anything, he didn't do any sadhana, nothing. It just occurred to him one day that I am not this body. Then he started the inquiry, if I am not this body, who am I? No, we don't know that we are not the body, so the inquiry of who am I doesn't start. We like to think we are the body. Hmm? So the inquiry into who you really are, or what you really are, let's say, even who is not such a good term, what one really is to figure out that in my true identity, this body doesn't exist for long, it dies. When I die, do I die with the body, or am I still around? If I am still around, if I still have a personality or a subtle body, still it is mine and it's not me. So if all these are mine, then I must be different from mine. Look, now you're wearing a beautiful t-shirt here and you're sitting here. Now when you say I, when I say you, I identify you with this whole structure, right? These pants you wear and the shirt, everything together is you. But suppose you go into your room and you take out your t-shirt, of course with the door shut, and your pants, and then you hang them on a peg. Are you the clothes? No. But when you wear it, you are part of it. Everything is part of it. When you remove it, you are different, your clothes are different. Right? So, Maharishi, when he was very young, got this experience that if the body belongs to me, just as the clothes belong to me, I cannot be what belongs to me. I have to be separate. Suppose I say this vest belongs to me, I am not the vest. Can I be the vest? I am wearing it, so I say it's you think that it is part of me. No, not you. So, what is mine cannot be me, is what is. So therefore, if this is my mind, I cannot be my mind. If this is my brain, I cannot be my brain. If this is my breath, then I am there and I have my breath. So there are two things here. So when one goes into this thought, quietly, in solitude, deeper and deeper, and saying what is mine cannot be me, including the thought that I am looking at something cannot be me. Suppose finally I come to, now I am here and I am trying to find still I am not me, it belongs to me. So in this process of inquiry, which is called the path of inquiry, Jnana Marga, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into finding our true identity of what am I if these things are mine and therefore I can't be this, so what am I? So in the quietness of this inquiry, one day, perhaps it will dawn on you what you actually are. Nobody can define it. You can give different names like Brahman, this, that, but nobody can define. Thank you for taking up the subject, sir. But then, very few people really are interested in finding out one's true identity. Like different things. That's okay. Finally, you have to come back to your source.